States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer who's starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of Venezuela.
It's a kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted for, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's not a murderous thug, I'm not going to damn lie. And I've got a bunch of neighbors and friends who know this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old girl.
Thanks to Senator Rand Paul. His new book is called The Case Against Socialism, and we'll be right back.
Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain to me. Don't do this. If you're not going to say that Maduro is a dictator and he's a great man, and I'm just going to come up here and talk like this into your face, and I'm going to she-splain to you. Okay, I'm just going to she-splain to you. Okay.
Did anything that Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 11th of October, 2019. Do you know what last night was?
The most epic Trump rally in the history of Trump rally, funded entirely by the Russians. Piece. We're going to come back over here to America. And this is Texas Sheriff on the criminal illegals. And I really like what he's saying here, because with the sanctuary cities, you're putting criminals back on the street to hurt people.
In Tarrant County, Texas, it's the 15th largest county in the nation.
That guy.
This morning we had 4,200 inmates. Out of that, 7% were illegal aliens, and they were being held for such offenses as murder, sexual assault of children. There was about 70 of them. And so, and there were robbers in there, and kidnappers, and people who committed arson, and people who were DWI. And out of that, you know, you think about that, if we return them with this radical ruling out of California, where you have a federal judge making law for the nation, or attempting to, it will put our communities in jeopardy. Of those people that we have in custody, we know for a fact that 72% of them are repeat offenders. So if we have to turn them loose, or they get released, they're coming back to your neighborhood and my neighborhood. These drunks will run over your children, and they will run over my children. And if that happens, I know that you will want, and certainly I would want for you, the full force of the law.
Yeah.
And immigration is part of that full force. These people have come into the country illegally. And I understand that many of these migrants come across that river down there in Texas looking for a better day, for something better for their family. And I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But the problem is the very people that they were fleeing, who preyed upon them, came with them.
Wow.
And that's who we're trying to initially eliminate out of our country.
That's such a good point. So, and I don't think anybody's worded it that way. You know what? That's fine that these people want to come, even if they're coming illegally. Let's deal with that later. But the problem is these good-hearted people that are fleeing, these awful, awful people, are just bringing them right in with them. And so there has to be law, there has to be order, there has to be due process.
Right. So, speaking of law and order, what we have in California is this craziness. It's just absolutely insane. Dark shops, spotty phones, rotting fish, life in a mass blackout.
So hang on, let's explain what's happening.
So, I did in the beginning, but I'll re-explain it.
There's a lot of really bad fires in California. And
Faced with mounting... Oh, go ahead.
Good, no, it's fine. Go ahead, read it. It's fine.
Faced with mounting public anger over massive blackouts, California Governor Gavin Newsom blasted PG&E Corporation for years of greed and mismanagement as the bankrupt utility restored power to more than half of those left in the dark. Newsom comments came as many PG&E customers questioned whether it overreacted to a windstorm that didn't prove as powerful in Northern California as forecast. The company cut electricity to more than 2 million people, the largest preemptive blackout in the state's history, to prevent the power lines from sparking wildfires. The Democratic governor, who on Wednesday called the blackouts appropriate under the circumstances, took a dramatically harsher tone Thursday, blaming PG&E for not hardening its grid and saying the outage was the result of years of bad choices. His comments came just before PG&E's chief executive officer made his first public appearance since the blackout began, apologizing to customers for hardship the power failures have caused while defending the decision. So here you have these most affected in Sacramento, Santa Rosa, and San Francisco. It's decisions that were not made that had led to this moment in PG&E's history, he says. This is not, from my perspective, a climate change story as much as a story about greed and mismanagement over the course of decades. By Friday morning, the company had restored power to 60% of its homes. The violent winds, meanwhile, are ebbing in Northern California. Still, fire risk remains high. So remember the wildfires last year. They were trying to stop the wildfires from sparking.
Like if a tree, it's a windstorm, and the trees fall on the power lines, and then they start wildfires. It's a real risk.
Right. But I've never heard of cutting power preemptively.
So, do you want to know my conspiracy theory on this?
Well, and here's the thing. Michelle and I always talk about this. It's like the biggest thing that's going to cause mass hysteria
is power
outage. I mean, it's power outage for
It's
for
a
real.
way to control people.
Right.
When you can cause this kind of hysteria, because what happens when you take people's power from them, especially when they're so hooked to all of their electronics and so on and so forth, they're drug addicts. They will do anything to get their fix. They will sell their souls. They will sell their bodies. They will do whatever. Give me my power. Give me what I need. I will be a slave to the state. And so what California has done is they are positioning themselves to Cal-Exit. They're positioning themselves to kind of almost take on the federal government. You can't tell us what to do with what they're talking about with illegal immigrants. They want people to be dependent. They want to fill their entire state with them. So what I think is happening here is California is spinning out of control into pure chaos.
Yeah.
With the homeless on the streets, pooping in the streets, defecating in the streets, the rundown. They don't take care of their citizens in their cities. It's like, okay, you're supposed to be a socialist country. You're supposed to be, let's give all our money, and then you really take care of the people. You upkeep it. We have trash services. That's what happens when we see a lot of money going to the government here locally, you know. But that's not what you're seeing in California, because it's an age-old mind game where you just treat people like they are nothing, like they are dirt, like they are worthless, like they can't do for themselves. You degrade somebody. It's what you would do to them in a prison of war camp. Right. This is what they're doing to the entire state of California. It's all mind games. And so while they're playing that PG&E just did this because they don't have, what their excuse was, there wasn't enough upkeep on their utilities, and so if this were to happen, bad things would happen.
They had $30 billion in liabilities from the wildfires previously.
But I think it's more than that. I don't think that this was a business decision. I think that somewhere, somehow, these guys were told to cut power to cause a panic in this moment.
And talking about panic, there was the main failure was in communicating with customers about the outages. Company officials said the utility posted outage maps with inconsistent or inaccurate information. Its website crashed and its call center was overwhelmed. So people could not, and they said, we failed our customers. If you're going to cut power to these millions of people, you got to be ready. You got to be on the ball. You know what I mean? People are freaking out.
But they didn't want to be ready.
Night
they
before,
didn't want to be on the ball. They want people freaking out.
And the night before they started the power outages, they held a wine tasting thing for its most valued customers.
You're kidding.
No. So
what qualifies you for as a valued customer?
The more you pay to them.
Wi-Fi hotspot because the power's out, so we can't bring up anything out of inventory, and it creates a real loss of business for us. Our home is without power as well. I got a cooler full of ice this morning to pack all our refrigerated goods into.
So Jinx, when I was a kid, I remember there were power outages at the grocery store, and you could walk into the grocery store and the salespeople could literally sell you items if you had cash. and they would write it down. They literally would write it down and ring it up later. Okay, I remember going into Kroger. I remember where the scanner had the little crisscrossy thing, you know, for the UPC code. I remember that. I'm that old.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if all sales stop, so if there's a power outage, it's not that the products aren't there. It's that they can't be sold because these businesses literally can't sell product without electricity. And so what it does is it turns people into looters, because there's people that are going to say, I need this, I need that, I have to have it. And so what happens when you can't, people have generators. What happens when you can't sell the gasoline because there's no power? This is literally to purely cause panic.
And I would think it's also, you know, if I'm going to go conspiracy theory, I would say that this is a test to see how people would react. So I want to read some of the reactions. I was showering late Wednesday, shampoo in my eyes, an American Horror Story playing on my phone so loud that my husband couldn't hear my shouts for a light. I had just become one of the millions of people who have lost power in the biggest orchestrated blackout in California history. And here I was excited about the ocean breeze scented candle I had bought a day earlier because flashlights were sold out, and it was that or orange ginger. Other thoughts that ran through my mind. It's a good thing I didn't start a load of laundry and I'm going to miss the dishwasher. Curious, trivial, the first world problems you think of when you're facing an unprecedented shut off amid the threat of deadly wildfires and the prospect of going powerless for as long as a week. Our home in the Oak Hills was originally among 250,000 properties in San Francisco's bedroom communities that were supposed to lose power at noontime on Wednesday, joining the 500,000 that had gone dark just after midnight. Then the winds blew in our favor and bankrupt utility PG&E Corp changed its mind, delaying our cutoff to 8. I texted a friend at 10:30 to say our lights were still on, thinking maybe we were in the clear, and then it hit. And then she fell in the shower.
Hang on Twitter we have Focus Zone says, this power outage is a dry run training for bigger future outages in Homeland if the Homeland Secretary is involved.
Right. And the second thing you notice is the internet. I'm in charge of Bloomberg's coverage of the outages. And I had told my team that once the power went out, I'd conserve juice on my laptop and work by phone. No dice. I should have known. We live in the Bay Area and home of tech giants, including Twitter, Facebook, and dare I say it, Bloomberg. Of course, powerless people would rush to their phones, overwhelming the LTE networks and crippling mobile data access to everyone. That was painful, she says. There's some irony in the team leader of power at Bloomberg News losing power. On Thursday morning, I managed to squeeze a few emails out of Verizon's hobbled network from home before signing off to tend to our 1-year-old daughter and make a trek into San Francisco. I walked into the nursery to find Sophie's hands and feet were freezing. So much for our natural gas fueled heating system. A frantic Google search tells me that while these systems indeed depend on gas, they're designed to automatically shut off during power outages. She passed by pharmacies, banks, a coffee shop, and several office buildings on her way to a bus stop in Oakland. At all dark, a Lucky supermarket was among the few with lights on, a trailer-sized backup generator parked in its lot. At a clearly powerless sushi restaurant, a man was unloading a box of fresh tuna to deliver. What are they going to do with that, I asked him. They don't even have power, he shrugged. They ordered it. A worker at the local donut shop greeted patrons with no coffee, just donuts. With the credit card machines down, I paid for my glazed twist with a $5 bill. It's all cash in the Bay Area. At the bus stop, a woman held hands with her elementary school-aged son. His school was among dozens shut off because of the blackouts. What are you going to do, I asked. What can I do? I'm bringing him to work. Her son then turned to me and said he gets to play video games all day. Lucky kid. The drive into San Francisco was like re-entering the real world, working traffic lights, heating and cooling, opening and bustling coffee shops. Lucky them, too. I took advantage of our office outlets to recharge my phone, watch, laptop, and then backup battery. And at the end of the day, I scooped it all up for the bus ride back into the darkness. A friend texted to say her power was back on in Cupertino, home of Apple. A colleague emailed to say hers was restored in Berkeley Hills, not hers. I crossed back into the no internet zone.
Oh my gosh.
My phone went silent. The bus driver turned to a woman lamenting the loss of hot water and said PG&E needs to be dissolved. I lit a candle at home and waited. We made plans to relocate a freezer full of breast milk for Sophie to a friend's place. I'm sure every nursing mother can feel me when I say my husband would have had to pry that milk stash from my cold dead hands before she parted with it. Before we could load the cooler, we noticed lights flashing outside our front window. It was the electric company, and then a light at the top of the pole flickered on, and here it is she heard her husband clapping. Now, remember, Michelle, if you can, and by the way, solar panels don't work in blackouts because they are mostly designed to feed into the power grid.
Exactly.
And unless you have a battery, a good Tesla battery, which I don't consider good, but you have to have a Tesla battery, which Thomas Massey does, you are
SOL.
You're up a creek without a paddle. Mm-hmm. I don't think you really wanted to say that.
Well, but I just gave the acronym there.
You didn't. Up a creek without a paddle is better. Yeah. A little bit more resistance shaky. Yeah. She didn't mean to say that, folks.
But here's I mean, it could happen. Something could happen where, you know, this is a thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know what it is, whether it's, you know, designed, I don't know. But the fact that people are so dependent and they don't know how to function, my big fear in a power outage isn't losing a freezer full of meat or something like that. I literally just worry about people on ventilators in hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care about myself. I don't care if I have to cook over a fire for a while or my whole freezer. Everything is replaceable but a life. And so the people that panic over these small things, I mean, she said, my toddler's hands and feet were cold at like school. And I'm like, you live in California.
So why'd you leave them there?
I mean, it's not like it's snowing there.
But why did you leave them there?
Exactly.
Why would you leave your child at a daycare with no electricity?
Well, but I don't think she realized that was going to be a thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying our whole lives over the past 100 years have become something absurd and ridiculous in comparison to the last 8,000. Yeah. In comparison to the last 200 years. I mean,
yeah, you used to have to worry about, you know, roaring marauders, lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my.
If your crop was going to fail or not.
Fires, crop failures, wagon
wheels. If your cow was going to survive giving birth to a calf. And now it's like, my iPhone, I can't shop. I can't, you know, it's like, and I'm not saying it's real. There are people that are literally dependent. We are all dependent on this. Yes, we would lose. We raise cooney pigs, and that's great, but we do store it in a freezer. Okay, we are all dependent on this system, and so I'm saying that the anger and the outrage shouldn't be in having lost power. It should be A, in how did we get here, but B, what somebody had said, what are we preparing for? What is this? This is, to me, it feels like it's psychological warfare here that's happening. To see what happens when we control people. It's a test run, it kind of felt like.
So Rand Paul went on The View, and this kind of does segue into a segment a little bit on socialism here, because he wrote a book and he really studied socialism. And they had Anna Navarro, who's supposedly a Republican, but she's not. And Rand Paul tries to talk about his book here, and listen.
You know, Bernie Sanders is no longer alone on the debate stage. It seems like we're hearing more and more about socialism. In fact, 43% of Americans think it's a good thing. You are on the complete other end of that. Tell us about this book.
Well, one of the things we learned in writing the book is a lot of people say, well, we're not for Stalin, we're not for Hitler, we're for Scandinavia. So as we were researching the book, we actually found that Bernie Sanders' form of socialism actually is unpopular, and he would never get elected to anything in Denmark. In fact, the Prime Minister of Denmark, when he heard Bernie was going around saying they were socialists, says, no, we're not socialists. We have private property, a stock exchange. We have low corporate income taxes. We don't have a minimum wage. And the big difference, and this is where the big lie comes from, Bernie says we're going to give you all this free stuff, but we're only going to tax the rich people. In Scandinavia, they tax the working class 25% sales tax, and an income tax starting at $60,000 is 60%. So really the difference between their country and our country is they do have more free stuff in Scandinavia, but they pay for it with massive taxes on the working class and the middle class.
So did you hear that? 60% income tax on $60,000.
And 25% sales tax. That's everyone.
25% sales tax.
That's
now,
everybody.
Listen to the audience here. Watch.
Taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health.
We have paid massive taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. Now, you guys, we do not, in a lot of states, like in Ohio, you don't pay tax on food here, or what am I talking about? You tax on food. What's the excise tax? Not property tax, buying tax, whatever the tax is to buy things.
Tax.
Sales tax, yeah. My brain wasn't working.
That happens to me all the time.
But she says, what she says here is so weird. She says, we pay a lot of taxes, but he just said 60% on $60,000.
Healthcare, our public education system is a problem.
We have a different.
The only people that get free stuff are the very, very wealthy.
We have a different form of taxation in our country. Ours is much more progressive. So we've taken the poor off of the rolls. They don't pay income tax anymore. Most people below $50,000 don't pay any income tax. The top 1% in our country.
People are mumbling here. You guys, the poor in this country, I don't know what the number is exactly, but you don't start paying income tax. You do pay Medicare and Social Security tax.
Which is different.
And that's what they're thinking that they're paying.
I know.
And they're so ignorant that they don't know that they're paying Medicare and Social Security tax. And I think that Rand would have helped to say that to them, but they don't know that they're not paying it.
Pay 40%.
Our audience says that's not true.
Well,
and she doesn't know either. It's embarrassing.
the IRS statistics say that the top 1% in our country pay 40% of the income tax, and that those making less than $50,000.
Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax. Let me ask you this, because I live in Miami. There's tens of thousands of Venezuelan exiles living there. You talk a lot about Venezuela in your new book. I get a lot of political ads from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has tweeted this. Many have tweeted this. If you vote for Democrats, they will turn the United States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer who's starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of Venezuela.
It's a kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted for, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's not a murderous thug, I'm not going to damn lie. And I've got a bunch of neighbors and friends who know this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old virgin.
Thanks to Senator Rand Paul. His new book is called The Case Against Socialism, and we'll be right back.
Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain to me. Don't do this. If you're not going to say that Maduro is a dictator and he's a great man, and I'm just going to come up here and talk like this into your face, and I'm going to she-splain to you. Okay, I'm just going to she-splain to you. Okay.
Did anything that he said sound condescending to you? Like he was mansplaining something? No, he's an expert in his field, and he is just literally explaining. So now if you're a man and you go to explain something to somebody from Venezuela, you're now mansplaining.
Well, she's not Venezuelan, but yeah.
Well, whatever she is. Don't
neighbors,
mansplain to me. I am a 47-year-old woman. Okay, you know what? He said, let's have a conversation. No, we cannot have that conversation.
Well, and she took his words out of context. And I think that it kind of explains itself, but because I want to hit this thing and then we kind of sign off. So Ben Shapiro, I'm not a big fan of Ben Shapiro, honestly. It's very interesting what he says here, because Ben Shapiro warns that if politicians try to mandate the LGBTQ indoctrination at schools, then he will pick up a gun. Further adding, Beto O'Rourke does not get to raise my child, and if he tries, I will meet him at the door with a gun. Now, Beto O'Rourke is going super extreme to where if he, he would mandate LGBTQ indoctrination of your children, and maybe you can't homeschool, maybe you can't choose your own school. Losing your 501c3 status, a lot of these Christian schools would lose their tax exempt status. I mean, it's pretty crazy, but here we go.
In other words, if you're a church, you're not infringing on anybody's rights. You're just saying you can't come here for your marriage. Go to the church down the street. Go to a religious school. You're saying, listen, you want to learn about gay rights? Go to the public school down the street. You want to learn about gay rights? You can just go to that secular atheistic crossroads school in Santa Monica. Enjoy yourself. That's your problem. Oh, enjoy. Fine. You're not infringing on anybody. Your mere existence is an infringement, according to Beto O'Rourke. The institutional existence is an infringement on liberty, according to Beto O'Rourke, and you must be shut down. You want a culture war in this country? You damn well have it, Beto O'Rourke. You want a culture war in this country? You want this country to come apart that seems this is how you do it. Because I promise you, if you come to tell me that you're going to indoctrinate my kids in particular policy, and that I can't pull my kid out of the school and send my kid to a school I want to send them to, that I can't go to the church or synagogue that I want to go to? And if you make that national policy, not just California policy where I can move, but national policy, people are not going to stand for that. They're not going to stand for that. If you send a truant officer to remove my child, I have two choices at that point, right? If I have no place to move because you've now made this national federal policy, I now have two choices. One is to leave the country utterly. Two is to pick up a gun. Those are the only choices that you have left me. And now people are like, oh, this is, how could you say stuff like that? How could you be so extreme? It's not extreme to defend the fundamental rights the Constitution was created in order to protect. These rights pre-exist government. My right to raise my child in my faith is my right. It is a First Amendment right. There's only one reason the government exists, to protect those rights, not invade those rights. It is my right to raise my child with the moral precepts that I find to be beneficial for my child. Beto O'Rourke does not get to raise my child. If he tries, I will meet him at the door with a gun. That is insane. That is insane. If he tries to remove my child from my home, and well, he's not suggesting that. Where do you think this goes? What do you think the next step is?
Where do you think it goes, and what do you think the next step is? And he's absolutely unequivocally right. They take and that's what Rand was trying to get to, and they cut him off. Oh, we don't have enough time. You know, they have more time. They just literally go to cut somebody off when they know somebody's about to make a point that they don't want them to make. And that is the fact that what he said is these people voted in socialism. Okay.
Under Chavez.
And then they get dictatorship
exactly
with it.
Right.
You really think that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Beto O'Rourke don't want to be your dictator?
Right.
They absolutely want to dictate your life. They want to become a thug. They are thugs. Thugs come and steal your ability to defend yourself.
And when you fight back, they take your weapons. And when they take your weapons, they put you in jail.
Right.
And then they harm you and they take your kids from you.
Right. And they censor you. They make sure that you can't speak out. That's what thugs do. And that's what socialism is. And that's what they want.
Yeah.
They want that.
They want the power.
And that's why they cut Rand off.
With AOC, and you see it with Bernie Sanders. And so we are literally at the precipice of Americans who have been so brainwashed. And you know, you have to hand it to the communists who have been infiltrating public schools since the 1920s.
Yeah.
They have a full 25 or 30% of the country believing that the socialism is a good thing, that communism, which led to, you know, the deaths of over 100 million people, is actually a good thing. Right.
All right, so I think it's been a great show. If you missed the first half, it was hilarious, covering Trump's Minneapolis.
Just a minute.
We're almost finished here. Okay. We're almost finished. It was really, really fun. And I think that tonight was a great show. Good job, Leah. Well done. Join us back
the news
on
took care of itself.
Sunday at 1 p.m.
Thanks,
Eastern
Trump.
Standard Time for our European and UK news from around the world. Thank you to everybody that joined. Thank you to all of our moderators. We love you guys. Remember to send us your letters. We'll read them on air. P.O. Box 107, Milford, Ohio 45150. You can also find us on resistancechicks.com, Bitchute, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You know all the places you can get to us. So we love you guys. God loves you.
Do you want to read any comments before we sign off?
No song, Maia says. We did a whole thing. We did a whole sing.
We have a cousin's dog here tonight, and she's getting 60%. Casey Holmes says 60% of $60,000 is $36,000 in taxes.
Thank you for that. That's absolutely
Ben
ridiculous.
Shapiro is going all gangsta.
Yep.
Go scroll up just a little bit. I want to see if anybody's saying anything. Mom.
Britbot says, Michelle, the UK pays taxes on everything we do and buy, from income taxes, death taxes, on everything, from food, clothes, cars, fuel, insurance, so on and so on and so on.
Mom says, Revolutionary War was over tax on gold and silver coins. Without gold and silver, the government owns you. The Federal Reserve owns you. Gold and silver coins. Then you are free. You're the protection of the Constitution. Jim West says, yep, Baza, that is why the left say the NHS is free health care, but it really is not.
Yep.
Wicked Sykes says, in my state, we pay sales tax, property tax, federal tax, state tax, excise tax, income tax, tax on any interest on saved money, and double income tax if you inherit money that was already taxed.
Well said.
Rand Paul was wasting time going on that. Denmark's
I don't know,
average...
because any publicity is good publicity. It'll get people to read the book, and then they might learn something.
Says Denmark average wage is 43,000. America's is more like 30,000.
Maia says it's 11% where she lives.
Wow. Says 24% VAT over here, 25% in Sweden. Yeah, UN Agenda 21, the removal of 80% of humans, etc. And Navarro is a Democrat. There you go. Connect your exercise bike to the freezer and get Kansas to pedal it to keep it powered. I notice they don't want people to have their own power in their home. They want you to need to purchase the power.
And that's really interesting because all of these people that are selling these solar panels, like you said, it hooks you up to the grid and you don't have a battery. And so you are still up a creek without a paddle when the power goes out.
All right, guys. So there we go. You guys are really doing a lot of good comments.
No, it was great. And
Tonight.
speaking of comments, we love it when you guys actually take all of your great comments. The more comments we get after the fact, not just in the live chat, but on the video, it puts our video out there better. Okay. So take all of your good comments, go and copy them and put them on the video after it processes, please.
Yep. We love you guys. Thanks for being here.
Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's actually the truth. So we love you and we will see you back here on Sunday. Bye, guys.
Cold.